Hi, my name is Chris and I am an indie developer from Eastern Europe. In this first devlog, I would like to introduce you to The Last Protocol, a top-down shooter game inspired mainly by Alien shooter series. Let's start by saying why I decided to make a game like this instead of starting straight away with something bigger. The simplest answer is that I had already tried to make more complex games, and I failed. The Last Protocol is made with Unreal Engine 5, which I switched to after several years of working with Unity. There are better places and times for debates about which engine is better, because in truth each has its problems, but I wanted to give you this information for a broader context. While working with Unity, I tried to tap into the hype around retro shooters, but my work was going so slowly that not only did I not catch on to the hype, but I had no real chance of finishing my game within, say, a year. I realized this fact around the end of 2023 and decided to take a break for a few months to think about what to do next. In my spare time, I experimented with Unreal Engine 5 and a top-down shooter-style game. Working with Unreal was a pure pleasure, so I decided to write my next game using this engine. I also decided that this time I would not do anything overly complicated, a project that will not reap me 5 years of life, but most likely a year or two. After a long analysis, I decided that an alien shooter-type game was within my reach, so I began working on The Last Protocol. Learning from my mistakes, I concluded that the first step must be to build a simple prototype, which will be the basis for the demo version. I wanted to share the demo version with players to gather feedback as soon as possible. At this point, I am at the end of the functional prototype, so the next step will be to prepare a demo. However, I will talk more about it in the action plan section. Gameplay loop can be reduced to the following steps. Defeat hordes of enemies, gather resources, update guns and character stats. Take the challenge to a higher level of difficulty. Repeat. It seems to me that this type of gameplay is simple enough for me to implement it in a reasonable period, and at the same time, it will be sufficiently encouraging for the player. The gameplay will be divided into smaller missions. The goal for the player is simple: complete the mission, kill all the enemies, and reap the rewards. The missions will take place in varied locations to keep the player entertained. 2 examples can be seen in this devlog: the military base and a destroyed city. In addition, before the start of the mission, the player will be able to choose under what weather conditions the mission will take place and at what time of day. Aside from the visual layer, the above choices will also affect the gameplay itself. For example, by starting the game at night, the player will have a severely diminished field of view and will have to face enemies he won't meet during daylight hours. Since night gameplay will be more difficult, it will also offer more resources to acquire. The same situation will also apply if you decide to play, for example during a sandstorm. Each additional mission mode will be unlocked after completing the challenge with lower difficulty, which in my opinion will positively affect the replayability of the gameplay. Levels will also feature various secrets to encourage the player to explore. The bonuses can be hidden in smaller locations, as well as behind destructible surroundings. There will also be gates blocked by access cards or those that can be destroyed with explosives, as long as those explosives are in the inventory. As I mentioned before, I want to keep things simple, so I decided to limit the choice of playable characters to 3 types. These will be the classics among the character classes, but I will give you more details in the next devlogs. Each of them will use a set of 3 weapons and probably additional special abilities. By collecting resources, the player will be able to develop the stats of weapons and the characters themselves, allowing them to take on challenges at a higher difficulty level, like a mission played at night and during a sandstorm. As with Alien Shooter, my goal is to put as many enemies as possible on the player's path. I still need to work on the game's performance, but at this point, I think I will be able to achieve about 60 opponents in a single encounter. As for the types of opponents, conceptual work is still in progress. but I will not reinvent the wheel here. You can certainly expect hordes of opponents that will attack both at close range and from a distance. However, the game's theme relies on demonic creatures, so that they will replace the aliens used in Alien Shooter. The next step will be to set up a Steam page and social media channels. Immediately after that, I will focus on preparing a demo with which I want to gather as much feedback as possible. A fundamental issue here is the question of performance. Unreal Engine makes it relatively easy to prepare eye-pleasing graphics. Still, without the right amount of caution, this can very quickly cause serious problems if the game becomes completely unplayable due to high-fidelity visuals. And that would be all if it comes to the introduction of the last protocol. If you liked what you saw at this point, the best way to support my work is to subscribe to my channel, so you can receive notifications of future devlogs. See you in a bit.